So when looking at the main muscles that are being activated during the piano playing, in wrist flexion, there's going to be the flexor carpi radialis, flexor carpi ulnaris, and then the palmaris longus. And then for wrist extension is another main movement. You're going to have the extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis, and then the extensor carpi ulnaris, and then also the extensor digitorum and the extensor indices, the digiti minimi for the pinky, and then for the thumb, the pollicis longus and brevis. So then another main movement is wrist abduction and adduction. The muscles for abduction are going to be flexor carpi radialis, and then extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis, and then also the pollicis extensor muscles. And then for adduction, you're going to have the flexor carpi ulnaris and extensor carpi ulnaris.
So while the piano player is reaching for the different keys, she's performing finger abduction and adduction, and the muscles for finger abduction are the abductor pollicis longus, which is responsible for thumb abduction, and also the palmar interossi, which is responsible for adduction of the second, fourth, and fifth phalanges at the metacarpal phalangeal joints. Also the dorsal interossi, which is responsible for abduction and adduction at the second, fourth, and the fifth phalanges, but adduction at the third phalanges. While the piano player is pressing down on the keys and lifting at the keys, she's performing finger extension and flexion. For flexion, she's performing this muscle action with the flexor digitorum superficialis, the profundus, and the flexor pollicis longus. And when she is lifting her hands off the keys, she's performing extension with the extensor digitorum, extensor indices, digiti minimi, pollicis longus, and extensor brevis. Also, finger extension is responsible from the dorsal interossi, which is responsible for extension of the second, fourth, and the fifth phalanges at the proximal interphalangeal joint and the distal interphalangeal joint.
A couple stretches that she can do before and after she plays the piano: clasp her fingers together and then roll in one direction, working the flexors and the extensors of the wrists and fingers, and then in the opposite direction a few times. Another stretch she can do: tabletop position, flip her fingertips forward, rock a couple times forward and back, and then she can also flip her fingertips in to face towards her knees, and that's an even deeper stretch along the anterior side of her arm and wrist. And then the last one she can do is gorilla pose. You start in a forward fold, bend your knees a lot, slide your fingertips underneath your feet so your toes kiss your wrist creases, and then you hang out here, and then you can massage your wrists with your toes.
So some strengthening exercises that the piano player can do to strengthen her wrists and are forearm curls. So if you just take a free weight and you curl it, this will strengthen your wrist flexors. And then another exercise you can do for your wrist extensors is a reverse forearm curl. So you just flip over and do the same motion. And then finally, another exercise that's really good for stabilizing the wrist is a high plank.